my channel. I'm the Tiny Vegan. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another vegan video, because we do so much vegan content on this channel. We do weekly uploads which can be food hauls, vegan advice videos, vegan nutrition videos, everything like that. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those. So in today's video we're doing a reacting to assumptions people have about vegans. So I went on some of these vegan Facebook groups and I asked the question, I'm making a video, what are some assumptions that people have had about you as a vegan? And when I say I had 500-600 comments within about a day, maybe 2 days, I actually had to turn off the commenting on the post because I had that many people sending in their assumptions about what people have said about them as vegans. So this may have to be a part 1 and a part 2 because I have so many to go through and I really wanted to react to them. And to be honest, like some of them are amusing and some of them are just stupid. Like people actually just don't think about what they say and like they've made these assumptions and actually said it to vegans. The first one that I had, someone commented that someone had told them that they were too pure to date because they were a vegan, which in itself is just so stupid. I've actually seen a video of a vegan YouTuber who's going on a dating app and basically someone put in their bio, don't bother messaging me if you're vegan, and it's like, is that actually, that's like saying don't bother messaging me if you vote a certain party, like get over it, it's just an opinion. I heard assumptions that vegans are weak and tired all the time, which in reality is the complete opposite, but again that's very dependent on what you eat and on your specific diet really. That I'd be against breastfeeding. So that in itself is quite interesting because one of the arguments that vegans say against drinking cow's milk is that you're not a baby cow. We're not telling the cows that they're not allowed to drink their mother's milk. So therefore, why would you be not vegan for drinking breast milk? That all vegan are activists, but not enough vegans are activists. That was the comment. I think being an activist, a vegan activist, is a lot harder than you give it credit for, because I appreciate that it would be fantastic if all vegans were activists, but it can be hard to be an activist. It can be a lot easier to be an activist in your own home, if that makes sense. So instead of like going out on marches and going and trying to stop lorries carrying chickens, it can be a lot easier to be an activist in the way that you live your life, so not buying animal containing products. That can be a good way of being an activist in your own home. But I definitely get the point that not enough vegans are activists, because I do understand that, but at the same time I completely understand why, because the amount of hate that you get for it, and you can get into trouble with the law from being a vegan activist, and obviously there's some things worth fighting for, which completely veganism is one of them. But I can understand why people aren't vegan activists, why not every vegan is an activist. I must be a social justice warrior who policies everyone and guilt trips meat eaters all day. That is an assumption that every single vegan I think will have experienced, because so many people think that if you eat meat in front of a vegan, every single vegan is going to have something to say about it and is going to have a go at you for eating that meat in front of them. But actually, as I've said in my previous videos, for me, that isn't a good way of promoting veganism in any way. It doesn't actually promote it, it just stops people from wanting to be vegan. So I understand where they're coming from, because that's definitely true, but meat eaters and vegetarians do need to understand that that is not the case. Like, just like people don't really have the assumption that if you eat meat in front of a vegetarian they're going to go off on you, why would they then have the assumption that if they eat meat in front of a vegan they're going to go off on you? It's just wrong. Like, I would never tell someone off for eating meat in front of me. I can definitely inform them, but I wouldn't do it while they're eating, because I just think that's not promoting veganism. It's never going to help. If you're pushy, people are just going to go completely the opposite way. One on the same ilk, sometimes people assume that I'm judging them if they aren't vegan, which is not true. I completely agree with you. That is literally what I have every single day. People assume that I have strong opinions on their lifestyle, and yes, I do believe that everyone should be vegan, but judging people isn't an effective way of making them go vegan. It would never ever work. It's like yelling at someone for their political opinion is not going to make them agree with you, is it? It's going to make them go really far the other way, in my opinion. That there's nothing I can eat, I'm limiting my choices. Not really though, because there's more vegan options than there are non-vegan ones, and it's super easy to cook vegan. People just don't understand. I get what she means, because people eat vegan without knowing that they're eating vegan. People assume that I'm a snob. So basically a lot of these comments are people saying that non-vegans assume that they're either going to preach about their lifestyle or that they think they're above them for being vegan. That I'm malnourished, oversensitive, overthinking, irrational, making things harder than they have to be, phony, pretentious, pompous, naive, idealistic. And then she said, but I guess I'm also loving, sensitive, caring, good, dedicated, motivated. Some of them are true, I guess, both good and bad. And this is so true. If you are a non-vegan and you talk to a vegan, you're going to be one of two people. You're either going to be very judgmental and you're going to think that they are fussy, oversensitive, irrational, malnourished, and you're going to have the negative view of veganism. Or you're going to have the very positive view of veganism. I'm going to basically be a vegan at heart, but who can't go vegan because they find it too hard to give up cheese or something. And they think, oh wow, you're doing a great job, you're sensitive, you're caring, I bet you're really healthy, and good things. So you're going to be one or the other. Very rarely are you going to find someone who doesn't have one of those two opinions. I just think the idea that you are being called oversensitive for not wanting to end a life is everything that's wrong in the world. If you're called a snowflake for not wanting something to die just for a meal, then literally that is why this world is going to collapse and burn, because you're literally being called sensitive and a snowflake for caring about something outside of yourself, and I think that's really sad, personally. Someone did comment, does anyone else here get positive feedback? I swear it's always positive. They actually respect me. I don't get all this negative comments. And amazing. If you haven't come across it, that's fantastic. You've never had to experience it. Assuming all vegans refuse to eat with or be in the presence of people who are eating meat, which some vegans do. I cannot remember for the life of me what they are called, which is basically a vegan who will not go anywhere near anyone who's eating meat. So for instance, if they were having a meal with someone, they are making a stand in not eating that meal with other people, if that makes sense. If other people are eating meat around the table, like, you'll refuse to be at the table, because that in itself is making a stand and being like, well, that is so wrong that I don't even want to be in the presence of it. Which, to be honest, I actually do kind of understand that, because if someone was eating a human at the table with you all sitting around it, I'm pretty certain all of you would refuse to eat at that table while someone was eating human. So therefore, why is it different that you would refuse to be on the table while someone's eating a sheep or a calf? Do you see? Like, I completely understand that perspective. This is a phase and I'll eat meat again. And this is true. People do think that it's a phase, especially when you go vegan when you're younger. So I went vegan when I was about 14, I think. And that was definitely, I feel like that was more called a phase, because you're so much younger and you're making a decision for what you're eating. And people just think that that will just be a phase. I think it really depends on person. Like, some people will start eating meat or dairy or eggs again, but some people just stick with it for life. Veganism isn't going to be a straight line. You will have your ups and downs. You'll have times when, yes, you may eat a dairy milk because you're absolutely craving it. Then think, instead of thinking, oh, I ate that, I'm not vegan anymore, think what you've saved over the period of time that you are vegan and how much good that has done in comparison to if you weren't vegan. So think of the positives instead of the negatives, and then it'll be so much easier for you to be vegan, I guarantee. The vegans are skinny, and I've read through some of these comments, and I can actually honestly say the majority of them are either about vegans not having enough protein, which I haven't even bothered reading those comments because everyone knows that one, and it's just so frustrating that people haven't caught on to this yet. And I completely appreciate that all of these comments are said by people who have had that said to them. Nothing against people who write in the comments, obviously, because they're the ones having it said to them. Saying that vegans are skinny, and that if you're a larger vegan, that you cannot be a proper vegan because you aren't skinny. And that is just so wrong on so many levels. Not only is that wrong from a vegan perspective, but to actually say to someone, comment on their weight, is just so wrong. Just don't comment on other people's weight, please. Don't comment on their personal appearance unless you're being helpful. Don't go to them, oh, you look too fat to be vegan. And if you say that, you're not a nice person, to be honest. That it's too expensive, we don't get enough protein, or we do it all just because of the animals or planet. They don't see the health reasons motivating us. Which is true. Like, people do assume that you are going to be vegan for the animals, and therefore you're going to go and pick up a pigeon when it's been hit on the side of the road. When no, like, some people are vegan for the planet, or they are vegan for health reasons, in which case I probably call them plant-based, because then it rules that out. That's the only reason why I label plant-based and vegan differently, is because it really does help your cause by calling yourself plant-based if you're plant-based, because then no one has that assumption that you're gonna care about things other than what's going into your body, if that makes sense. That I'm shallow because the taste of steak isn't enough to convince me to go back. Everything about that comment is just wrong. Like, how can someone say that because you only eat steak you're shallow? Either the person who said that to you is stupid and they don't know what shallow means, because that comment literally makes no sense. I'd say that you're not being shallow by the taste not taking you back. I'd say if you ate steak just for the taste, I'd say that is shallow, because that's such a stupid reason to eat steak. So that is just, that I'm doing it because of an eating disorder instead of ethical reasons. So I'm unhealthy. Yeah, there's so much wrong with that. People do think, and some people do use veganism as a crux for their eating disorder. They use it as a way of controlling their food. Absolutely, some people do that, but majority of people don't. And either way, you shouldn't assume that about someone. Even if that's what you think, like, don't say that. Just shut up. Don't comment on an eating disorder to people, because if that person was vegan because they had an eating disorder, then how is you commenting on that helping them? So just don't say anything. Animals are only not extinct because they're bred for people to eat. I need my grass cut. I thought I'd ask you first before buying a lawnmower. Will you have some casserole if I take the chicken out? So animals will be extinct because they're only bred for people to eat. It's stupid. Obviously the numbers would decline, and I have addressed this in another video which I'll leave on the screen. Obviously their numbers would decline. Like, that is just fact, because millions and millions of animals are bred, like billions of animals are bred per year for the meat and dairy industries and the egg industries. So therefore, obviously, the numbers would decline because there wouldn't be that many. But in what capacity is their numbers declining doing anything bad? People are still going to keep cows, sheep on a small holding, and goats and things like that, and chickens. So I don't understand how you think that they will go extinct. No, they won't go extinct. Their numbers will decline, but I don't see how that's a bad thing, because right now, they are they are the leading causes of climate change, being factory farmed animals are, which obviously isn't their fault, it's the people's fault, but it is the leading cause of climate change. That it's okay to be judgy, I don't compromise on areas of compassion. I think it's okay to be judgy, I don't compromise on areas of compassion. You know what? I understand where you're coming from completely, and when I think about it and I think, actually, I think it's okay for you to say to someone, why are you eating that steak? Do you know where it came from? Because, like, that is a life. If it was a human life, you'd fight to save it. So therefore, why aren't we fighting to save an animal's life? Like, what's really the difference? It's still alive. It still deserves to live. I completely agree with you from that point of view. But if you think about it from the long term, and like I've said previously, actually being judgy won't convert anyone. So I completely understand where you're coming from, because you shouldn't compromise on areas of compassion, because why would you want to be less compassionate? How is compassion a thing that you'd want less of? But then at the same time, being judgy, it never helped convert someone to veganism. So therefore, if you're thinking about it strategically, which we should be, think, actually, being judgy doesn't get me anywhere. I need to be nice about this and maybe I'll get somewhere. All vegans are white and affluent. I have a massive problem with that, because I'm sure the vegans who aren't white are going to have a problem with that as well, because you can't just assume that because they're a certain colour that they are going to be vegan, and because they're a certain colour they're not going to be vegan. Veganism isn't for a certain race or a certain demographic, it's for everyone, and everyone can be vegan, and I strongly believe that no matter what background you came from, if you made the decision to be vegan, just be accepting that you will slip up along the way. We all have, but then everyone can do it. Like, I don't believe that anyone can't be vegan. So this comment was basically people assuming that you have a protein deficiency. Don't push it on me. Complex issues, this generation, hippie, trend, ignorant. So protein deficiency, we've covered that. Don't push it on me, cover that as well. Complex issues, yeah, people do think that you will have an issue if you're vegan, because why would you go vegan for another being? Why would you go vegan because you care about something? There has to be something behind this, some complex issue. Like, no, I just care about something outside of myself, so I'm vegan. It's not complicated. This generation, definitely people think that it's a trend. Again, we did cover that in a different comment, but it's basically of the same ilk. People do think that it's either going to be a trend that you'll go out of, or it's just this generation thing. And in my argument would be, compassion shouldn't be this generation. The reason why veganism wasn't rife 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, is because people didn't know about where their food came from in such a great scale, A, and B, because their food wasn't coming in such a great scale. So for instance, in the 50s, yes, they obviously did have farms, but just for animal slaughter and for the animal production for food. But it wasn't on the same scale as it is today. It was still coming from smaller farms where the animals weren't on such a great scale that they were never allowed outdoors. Yes, being killed in any way with any background isn't okay in my opinion, but it wasn't such a big issue because you weren't having massive sheds full of chickens which never saw daylight and couldn't move in their cages because no farm was on that scale. So it wasn't causing the environmental problems, it wasn't causing the animal rights problems so much, because yes, they were still dying, but it was on such a smaller scale and they were being looked after in a far more compassionate way. And people weren't as aware of it. Because, for instance, let's say when factory farming started becoming a real thing, if Facebook wasn't around, for instance, for this information to be shared on, where are you going to find out about it? You might see it in the newspaper, but then you've got to find a publisher and you've got to find an editor to write that article and publish that article and be happy with that. And no one was going to do that because it's still not in newspapers today. So we're finding out about it through word of mouth, through social media. So there's so many different reasons why veganism wasn't a big thing in past generations. So yes, it may be more of this generation, but there are reasons behind that. That we're all super judgmental, I must say some of these vegan groups make me see why. I get you, this is definitely true. Some of these vegan groups are just something else. Like, you'll have vegans hating on vegans for not being good enough vegans, and you're just thinking, how is this helping? Like, no wonder people stop being vegan if you're hating on someone for not being a good enough vegan. Pointing out to someone, oh, by the way, that's not vegan, I just thought you might like to know for future reference. That's helpful because some people wouldn't want to know that. But being judgmental about the fact they're not a good enough vegan should not be a thing. Like, just relax. Like, they're trying their best. It isn't safe for the baby for me to continue being vegan while pregnant. People do think that you shouldn't be vegan and pregnant or have vegan children, and you can even be accused of mistreating your children by being vegan and by having vegan children. And my point of view would be, if you can call me mistreating, well, I don't have a child, but theoretically, if you can say that I'm mistreating my children when they have home cooked meals every single meal and they have nice home cooked lunches and it's all healthy and it's all nutritious, and yet you take your children to McDonald's every single night, who's the one neglecting and mistreating their children? Just to clarify, I don't have children. That would be my argument, should I have children? People assume that vegans care about their health as much as they do about the animals, and this is just, honestly, the amount of people that will say to you, if you are eating vegan junk food, the amount of people that will comment on the fact that you're eating that and be like, I thought you were meant to be healthy. You're like, no, I don't care about my health. No, I care about the animals. Like, I'm not vegan because I want to be healthy. If I was vegan because I want to be healthy, then I would eat whole foods vegan. I'm vegan for the animals, and therefore it actually doesn't matter what I put into my body. I don't care because I'm just vegan for the animals. That vegans are not as healthy as folks who eat the SAD diet and then we die earlier. For those of you that don't know, a SAD diet is the standard American diet. It is aptly called the SAD diet. And it's pathetic, really, because heart disease, high cholesterol, heart failure, every single negative health problem has just massively been exacerbated over the last 20 years, 30 years. And that's because the diet has just declined, where all we eat are massive portions of over-processed meat and dairy products. That you can't eat gluten. I was waiting for this comment because, unfortunately, as vegans, we do get lumped in with the gluten-free. No hate on you if you're gluten-free, but it doesn't taste the best, to be honest. Like, vegan food, if it's not gluten-free, it tastes 10 out of 10. When it's gluten-free as well, which it quite often is if it's like a cheesecake and things, drops it to about 6 out of 10, I'm afraid. So I have about 40 minutes worth of footage now to edit through. And that is about a fifth of the comments that there were. So let me know in the comment section if you'd like to see a part 2 and if this kind of video interests you. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram because I always post my meals on there and things like that. So if you want to see what a vegan eats, then follow me on there. Hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next one.